Hey everybody, it's Kev here. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm going to talk about one of my other heroes. No, it's not Theodore Roosevelt. It is about the amazing Amelia Earhart. Now, of course, Amelia was the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic back on May 21, 1932. It's been 81 years since she was legally declared dead on January the 5th, 1939. And at that point she'd been missing for 18 months, having disappeared on July the 2nd, 1937 during an attempt to circumnavigate the globe. Now, we're not going to talk about that today. I just want to go and just look at her upbringing and some of the amazing things that she did as an aviator. She was born in Kansas back on July 24, 1897. Which is round about, 61 years before I was born. Not that long ago. And that's why I think it's just fascinating to go back and read about the people of history who did amazing things. There was no internet, there were no mobile phones, and yet they went out there and they just did amazing, inspiring, life-changing things that impacted the world. That's why I get so inspired by people like her, Theodore Roosevelt, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, all these people who lived a long time ago and yet had a massive impact on the world without the internet, without mobile phones. Now, Amelia got hooked on flying while she was attending an air show in the Toronto area, and she'd moved there to work as a nurse's aide during World War I. And also, which is quite sort of fitting, speaking about this in today, 2020, she also volunteered there during the 1918 flu pandemic. She took flying lessons in California. She set a woman's altitude record of 14,000 feet in 1922, but she wasn't yet committed to a total career as an aviatrix. She took classes on health and medicine at Columbia University, and they were followed by a period as a social worker in Boston. Now, she flew on her days off, becoming the only female member of a local pilots association and making headlines for doing a flying stunt to raise money for the settlement house where she worked. Now, all this publicity got the attention of a guy named George Palmer Putnam, who ended up marrying Amelia, and he was the publisher of Charles Lindbergh's book, We, and he'd been looking for a Lady Lindbergh to replicate the success of the first solo non-stop flight across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, he was really intrigued by Amelia and her physical resemblance to Lindbergh. He invited her to be a passenger on a transatlantic flight in June 1928, and she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic and then fly back. Now, Putnam rang her and invited her to be a passenger on a transatlantic flight, but he did say, "You will not be flying. There'll be two other guys on the plane. They're in charge. You're just sitting there doing nothing, basically, taking a few notes, and they're going to get paid and you're not." And what did she say? She said yes. Now imagine if she had have said no to that. And I spoke about this some time ago on the podcast, this particular story. And that's the joy of being able to say yes to things instead of just thinking about things and just saying no. If she had have said no, we may never have heard of her. But she said yes. And she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic and then fly back. Now, the duration of that first flight was 20 hours and 40 minutes, and that would also become the title of her book on the subject. Putnam married Amelia back in February of 1931 and became her publicist and the backer of her historic May 21, 1932 flight. The trip that, for the 5th anniversary of Lindbergh's historic Paris journey, made her the first woman to pilot solo non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean. And it's interesting, you talk about influences. Her career really took off. She funded her flying as a writer and a lecturer and even designed her own woman's clothing line. This is before Instagram, before Pinterest, all these things. And this is what amazes me with people back then. They didn't have any of those things, but they still went out and did the work and had an impact on the world. And her publicity stunts were very lucrative. In 1935, she got paid $10,000, which is approximately $185,000 in today's dollars, to become the first person to fly from Hawaii to mainland US. At that same year, Time described her as easily the world's #1 airwoman. And this is why I love having people like Amelia, Theodore Roosevelt, because they're so inspiring and we can learn so much from them. They've written books, they're telling us how to live an inspiring life. And yet a lot of us just jump on Instagram and look for an influencer. These people are the influencers long before Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, all those things. They are out there doing it. Read about them, learn from them. You really can make an impact on the world. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow. Well, I really hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, please subscribe and leave a review. That really does help us. And also share it with your family and friends. That would be great. And please support my sponsor, Prostate Plus. Prostate Plus supplements really can help shrink your prostate. I use them myself to great effect. The links to Prostate Plus are down below in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.